You either go back and it works and it's amazing and it's the right time, or you go back and you're like, whoa, what were we thinking?
What were we thinking?
But I can guarantee you one thing. If you don't have that conversation and you don't try, you're going to think about it for another 10 years.
I truly believe that my ex from 10 years ago is who I am meant to be with. We were really young and it just wasn't the right time back then. However, over the years, there has been multiple times when we have talked about getting back together. There has just always been something that's gotten in the way. For example, work commitments, personal reasons, or one of us has been in a relationship when the other wasn't. Only a few months ago, when I was in a short-term relationship, I found out that he was interested again. I'm not in that relationship anymore, but he has just started seeing someone. What do I do? No matter how much I try to convince myself I'm wrong, my gut keeps telling me that it's him and it will always be him who I am meant to be with. Should I try and talk to him about this? If so, what the hell do I say? Or just wait and see if time brings us back together again? We didn't end things on bad terms and have always stayed friends over the years, and I've always felt that there has been a connection between us. Is it just the one that got away and it's time to let that go?
Oh, okay. I have strong feelings about this.
So do I.
Okay. I wonder if I was the same. My feelings are yes, tell him. My feelings are 100% give it a go. Because what have you got to lose? You either go back and it works and it's amazing and it's the right time, or you go back and you're like, whoa, what were we thinking?
What were we thinking?
Not for us. But I can guarantee you one thing. If you don't have that conversation and you don't try, you've been thinking about this for 10 years. You're going to think about it for another 10 years, 20 years. If you meet someone else, it's always going to be in the back of your mind. Whether you've romanticized the idea, like there's a huge possibility that you've forgotten why you broke up and you've just remembered the amazing things. We're all guilty of romanticizing our past relationships. But maybe you haven't. And maybe there is something really amazing there and it was the wrong time. Because I do think timing can play a lot into situations and relationships.
I know we could not be on the more same page with this.
It.
I do think there's probably a very good chance that you have romanticized how perfect this person is for you over the past 10 years, how they're the one that got away, but you have to have a conversation about it. You have to lay your cards on the table, say exactly how you feel and explain to him that you want to have another shot at the relationship and see if that is reciprocated. And if it's not reciprocated, then you need to mentally close that door, because if you keep it open indefinitely, hoping that one time timing is going to align for the two of you, you will never, ever, ever allow yourself to be invested in another relationship, because no relationship is ever going to live up to the fantasy of what you have created, also to the time in which you had with your ex. Because sometimes when we compare new relationships with old relationships, you're comparing someone who you've never met before to someone who you've had now a decade of relationship with, because he's also been your friend. So it means you dated, but now you've been friends for the last 10 years. So no one's ever going to live up to that. And so I think even though he's just started seeing someone, it's time. And he will make the decision, okay, yeah, well, I'm going to give this a shot or I'm not. And I really want to say, and I say this from personal experience, sometimes what you think a relationship could be the second time around is actually just the nail in the coffin, the reaffirmation that you needed that the relationship doesn't work as a romantic relationship. And I say this because in my 20s, I dated someone for almost 6 years and I was convinced that they were the person I was supposed to marry. The first night I met him, I came home to my mum and I said, Mum, I met the man I'm going to marry tonight. And we persevered through so much in that relationship to try and make it work. We broke up, and for another 6 years, like I held on to this idea that he was the man I was going to be with, right? And I'm talking like I had another long-term relationship in there. I lived with him. Like it wasn't like I didn't date. Like I was like very committed. But he was always there in the back of my head that we were going to end up together. And maybe a year before I did The Bachelor, we actually gave it another shot. And it just wasn't.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. All the things that I had kind of tried to forget that were happening in our relationship, you know, when we very first were together for that 6 years, they kind of were still there. And like all the things that I thought he was so incredible about, he's incredible. He's a great guy, but he just wasn't the great guy for me. And our life, I'd moved on. The things that I thought I wanted were different to what I wanted back then, and it just didn't work. But I'm so grateful. I am so grateful that we gave it that shot, because if we hadn't, I think I would still have a bit of a ping for him. I think I would still be like, what if, you know, maybe he was the man I was supposed to be with because he had that incredible pull over me.
And this is what I want to say. You need a definitive answer, because I genuinely feel sorry for you, because I've been in a situation too, Laura, for that long where you've thought
Maybe.
we're supposed to be together.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right time. There is nothing worse than that being in the back of your head. You don't ever fully move on. You don't ever fully immerse yourself in your current relationship. And if you think in your gut, which you said, I think in my gut we're meant to be together, well, that's not fair to whoever you're with then. And you're never going to make that work if your mind is with someone else. Go figure that shit out. 10 years is a long time of back and forth.
It's too long.
You said that you've gone back and forth multiple times talking about getting back together. But then you've said, what do I say to him? Just own it. Just say, do you feel what I feel? Because for 10 years, I have tried to move on, but I always come back to you. Is there something here or not? Because I just want to know. Because it's the uncertainty that does your head in life, the not knowing. And I personally think life is too short. Go and get your answer so you can close the chapter or move on. And the only other thing that interests me here is you've said, recently I found out he was interested again. I'm wondering what that means, because that doesn't sound like he has come to you and said, let's give it a shot. I found out he's interested. I'm almost wondering if a mutual friend has said something like, I think that there could be something there still. It just didn't sound very convincing, but you have literally nothing to lose. You don't have him.
Well, he does. She does. The thing that she has to lose is the friendship, because she's migrated this like romantic relationship into a 10-year friendship. But the thing I really want to reiterate to you is that you are kidding yourself, because you're not friends, because you don't romantically pine over your friends. So either have the conversation and then sever the relationship if it doesn't work out. Like if he says, I'm actually not into you, I just want to stay friends. Sorry, I'm really invested in my new partner, whatever it is. You have to put on your big girl panties and say, okay, I think it's probably best for us if we don't speak for quite a while, and you need to go no contact, because it's the only way that you're going to break those, like you're going to break the neurons in your brain that tells you that you're connected to him, you're wired to him. I remember this quote, like when I was back in my Instagram, #quote era. And it was,
I wish I knew you in that time.
The right relationship at the wrong time is simply the wrong relationship.
Yeah.
And it is so true, because you can keep hoping that the right relationship is going to align. And if it never does, it's never the right relationship.
Okay, kids, sit down.
Oh, great. Here it
Mama
is.
has a story.
We got a quote. We got another quote.
No, Mama has a story. So my friend, a very good friend,
Yeah.
she is my age, so 36, 37, 34, 35, whatever. 36, 37. She was married really young. She got married 18, 19 to her high school sweetheart. And, they felt meant to be. That's why they got married. And they spent a couple of years together living not in a city, like a little bit inland. I don't want to give anything away, but anyway. So nothing wrong with their life. Great life. Everything that they wanted to do. And then they just realized, and I think she realized more so, oh gosh, there's nothing wrong with this relationship. I love you so much, but my mind and my thoughts are elsewhere. Like I think I want more in life, and I want to go different. I want to go travel. I want to do this and study and move different cities. And he was distraught, because he's like, wow, I thought this was forever. Anyway, they divorced. They broke up and they got a divorce. And she moved to the city and started to do all these things she wanted to do. And years went past. They weren't in contact. Years. She had a baby with somebody else, and then that didn't work out. So she was doing single mum life. And then one day, this is like a movie. She was in a supermarket in the new town that she'd moved to. Again, so far away from wherever they lived. She was in a supermarket and she was walking down the aisle, and she ran into her first husband, her high school sweetheart. They hadn't spoken in years.
Speaking of romanticizing shit.
It was like 10 years or something. Caught up, because they didn't end badly. How are you? Yep, this is my son. Like, crazy catch up. And then they were like, well, we should catch up sometime. So they caught up. They are remarried now with another child.
It's crazy.
They fell back in love and realized that it was the perfect example of the right person at the wrong time. And that doesn't happen often. And they have everything they wanted now. They're back in the house they wanted, with the kids, the family life, beautiful relationship. And it was just, they refound each other at the right time. So I am a believer that you should go and chase this for sure. But not chase it, investigate it. But you have to be ready to close the door because that is a fairy tale. The story I just told.
It totally is. But also, Britt, the thing that I think is important to take from that is that they went and they lived their lives.
100%.
They didn't sit in their, in relationships being like, oh my God, I wish I was still with my ex.
Yeah.
They lived their lives. She had a kid with someone else. She was in other relationships, and then they rekindled, and then they made that decision. But it's the pining over a love that you can't have. That means you're robbing yourself from a relationship that you deserve.
Life's
so either
too short.
have the conversation Or if you can't have the conversation, you need to go cold turkey and sever the friendship then, because it's simply just not a friendship.
I agree.